The will was read, and a shocking family secret was revealed. The funeral hall was silent. Not a calm silence. It was the kind that felt heavy, like everyone was holding their breath at the same time. Rows of people sat dressed in dark clothes. Some stared at the floor, some wiped quiet tears. At the front of the room stood a framed photo of Eleanor Brooks, placed beside white flowers. Before I continue the story, please like and subscribe my YouTube channel. Now, let's start the story. Eleanor Brooks was 79 years old when she passed away. She was known as a strong woman, strict, organized, private. She built her life with discipline and expected the same from her family. People respected her choices even when they didn't understand them. Now she was gone. And everyone believed they knew what she left behind. After the funeral service ended, no one stood up to leave. Everyone remained seated, waiting, because the will was about to be read. The family lawyer, Mr. Raymond Foster, stepped forward. He was calm, professional, and carried a thick sealed folder in his hands. That folder held answers and secrets. Eleanor's family sat in the front row. Victor Brooks, the eldest son, sat with his arms folded. His face looked confident. He believed the family house would be his. He had always believed he was entitled to it. Beside him sat Clara Brooks, the middle child. She sat upright, her expression tight. She had spent years feeling ignored. She believed this will would finally make things fair. At the end of the row sat Lena Brooks, quiet, nervous, unnoticed. Lena was the youngest. She had always felt like an outsider in her own family. She didn't expect much from the will. Still, her hands trembled slightly in her lap. Something felt wrong. Mr. Foster cleared his throat. "I should say this before I begin," he added, looking at the family. Eleanor knew this reading would not be easy. Victor let out a short laugh under his breath. Mr. Foster continued. She believed the truth was more important than comfort. Lena felt a sudden chill run through her body. Truth? Why would truth be mentioned in a will? Mr. Foster began reading. "I, Eleanor Brooks, being of clear mind, leave this will knowing it may shock those who hear it." The word shock filled the room. Clara's fingers tightened around her bag. Victor's smile slowly disappeared. Lena's heart began to pound. Mr. Foster paused again. "There are things written here that some of you may not expect, and some of you may not want to hear." A quiet tension spread through the room. Victor finally spoke. "Let's get on with it. There's no need for drama." Mr. Foster ignored the comment and continued. "For many years, my family believed they knew everything about me and about each other." Lena's chest tightened. "But there are truths I carried in silence," Mr. Foster read, "because the right moment to share them never came while I lived." Clara's face turned pale. Victor sat up straighter. "This will is not only about money," the lawyer continued. "It is about honesty." Lena felt dizzy. The room was completely focused now. No one whispered. No one moved. Mr. Foster read on. "I loved my children in different ways because they were different people." Victor nodded slightly. Then the next sentence changed everything. "But one of my children was never told the full truth." The air froze. Lena's breath caught. Victor turned sharply toward Clara. Clara shook her head slowly, confused. Mr. Foster lifted his eyes. "The person seated here today as my youngest child is not who this family believes she is." A loud gasp filled the room. Lena felt like the ground disappeared beneath her feet. Not who she is? Victor stood up suddenly. What kind of nonsense is this? This is not funny. Clara's lips trembled. Mr. Foster raised a hand. There is more, he said firmly. Lena could not move. Her thoughts raced. Her ears rang. What did this mean? Why did it feel like the words were aimed directly at her? Mr. Foster continued. The truth was hidden for decades, not to protect myself, but to protect someone innocent. Tears filled Lena's eyes. Memories rushed through her mind. Moments she always felt different. Moments Eleanor kept emotional distance. Moments that never made sense until now. Mr. Foster closed the page slowly. We will take a brief pause. The room was completely silent. Victor looked furious. Clara looked broken. And Lena sat frozen, staring at her hands. No one noticed her shaking, because no one yet knew the worst part. The real secret had not been revealed. The pause felt endless. No one spoke. No one moved. The silence in the room was now uncomfortable, sharp, and full of fear. Every person sitting there felt it. Something big was coming, something that could not be taken back. Mr. Raymond Foster slowly sat down in his chair, allowing the weight of Eleanor Brooks's words to sink in. Lena Brooks still had not lifted her head. Her hands were shaking so badly that she pressed them together, hoping no one would notice. Her heart was racing and her chest felt tight, like it was hard to breathe. Not who she believes she is. Those words repeated in her mind. Victor was the first to break the silence. This is ridiculous, he said loudly. My mother was old. Maybe she was confused near the end. Clara turned toward him. Victor, did you hear what he said? This doesn't sound confused. Victor waved his hand. She's always liked drama, even now. Lena finally looked up. Her eyes were filled with fear, not anger. What does this mean? She asked softly. Her voice cracked. Everyone turned to look at her. Mr. Foster stood again. Miss Brooks, he said gently, Eleanor wanted you to hear this more than anyone. Lena's stomach dropped. Mr. Foster opened the folder again and continued reading. Lena was raised as my daughter, he read, but she was not born into this family in the way everyone believes. Clara gasped. Victor's face turned red. Lena felt like her body was no longer hers. What are you saying? Victor demanded. Are you saying she's adopted? Mr. Foster shook his head slowly. No, he said, that is not what Eleanor wrote. The room leaned in. Even people sitting in the back felt cold into the moment. Mr. Foster read again. Lena came into my life through a decision made on a night filled with fear, regret, and silence. Lena's memories began flashing. Her childhood felt blurry now. The way Eleanor never hugged her the same way she hugged Victor and Clara. The way questions were always avoided. The way her birthday was never celebrated with photos. Mr. Foster continued. Many years ago, he read, my eldest son made a mistake that changed all our lives. Victor froze. What? He said sharply. Clara turned slowly toward him. Victor? She whispered. Mr. Foster did not stop. That mistake resulted in a child who deserved protection, not punishment. The room exploded with whispers. Victor's face turned pale. No, he said. No, that's not possible. Lena felt dizzy. Her ears rang loudly. Her eyes moved between Victor and Mr. Foster. Mr. Foster raised his voice slightly. Lena Brooks is not Eleanor's daughter. She is Eleanor's granddaughter. The words hit like thunder. Lena's breath left her body. Clara stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. You're lying. That's not true. Victor's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Mr. Foster turned to Lena. Eleanor raised you as her own, he said gently, because your real mother passed away shortly after your birth. Lena shook her head slowly. No, that's not possible. Victor is my brother. Mr. Foster looked at her with sadness. He is your father. The room went completely silent again. Lena felt like she was falling. Her legs gave out, and she gripped the arm of her chair to stay upright. Victor stumbled backward and sat down heavily. Clara stared at him with disbelief and horror. You never told us. You let her live a lie. Victor's voice trembled. I didn't know what else to do. Lena's tears fell freely now. All those years, you looked at me like I was a mistake. Victor covered his face. Eleanor's words echoed through the room. Mr. Foster read the next part. I watched Lena grow up believing she was unwanted, he read, and I stayed silent because the truth would destroy this family. Clara wiped her tears. So why tell us now? She asked. Mr. Foster turned the page. Because silence was destroying her anyway. Lena felt a deep pain in her chest. Her whole life had been built on a lie. Her identity, her family, her past. Mr. Foster closed the folder slowly. There is more in this will. Much more. Victor lifted his head, eyes full of fear. What else? He asked. Mr. Foster's voice was calm, but serious. The inheritance is tied directly to this truth. Lena looked up sharply. Claire's breath caught. Victor clenched his fists. Mr. Foster spoke the final line of the moment. Eleanor did not leave her estate to the person she believed would betray the secret. The room held its breath, because now everyone knew. The will was not about love. It was about consequences. And the biggest shock had not yet been revealed. The air in the room felt heavy, like it was pressing down on everyone's chest. No one expected what came next. Mr. Raymond Foster stood still for a moment, allowing everyone to breathe again, if they could. The truth had already cracked the family open, but Eleanor Brooks had planned more than just a confession. She had planned justice. Lena Brooks sat frozen in her chair. Her mind refused to slow down. Every memory from her childhood now felt twisted, broken, and confusing. Victor was not her brother. He was her father. The man she trusted, the man she feared, the man who never protected her. Clara sat stiff beside him, her face pale. She could not look at Victor anymore. Every time she tried, anger burned in her eyes. Mr. Foster cleared his throat. Eleanor was very clear, he said. She knew this truth would cause pain, but she also knew silence would cause more. Victor finally spoke. You don't understand, he said quietly. I was young. I was scared. Lena laughed softly, but there was no joy in it. You let me believe I was unwanted, she said. You let me believe I was broken. Victor's eyes filled with tears. I stayed away because I thought it was better, he said. For who? Clara snapped. For you? Mr. Foster raised his hand. There is more, he said. The room went quiet again. He opened the folder and continued reading. Everything I own, Eleanor had written, was built to protect Lena's future. Victor looked up sharply. What does that mean? He asked. Mr. Foster read carefully. My home, my savings, my land. They will not go to the person who hid behind lies. Clara's breath caught. Victor stood up suddenly. This is unfair, he said. I'm her son. Mr. Foster looked directly at him. And you failed her. Victor froze. Lena's hands clenched. Mr. Foster continued. Lena Brooks will receive full ownership of the family home. The room exploded. Victor shouted, No! Clara gasped. The whole house? Mr. Foster nodded. The entire estate, including all financial assets. Lena's eyes widened. What? She whispered. Mr. Foster turned to her. Eleanor wanted you to feel safe. She wanted you to know your life mattered. Victor's anger rose. She manipulated this, he shouted. She punished me. No, Clara said firmly. She protected her. Victor turned to Clara. You're my sister. You should be on my side. Clara stood up. I'm on the side of truth, she said, and you destroyed it. Victor looked around the room. He realized something terrifying. Everyone believed the will. Everyone believed Eleanor, and no one believed him. Mr. Foster continued. Victor Brooks will receive a symbolic sum of $1 to remind him that silence has a cost. Victor collapsed into his chair. Clara covered her mouth. Lena felt a strange mix of emotions: shock, pain, relief, and fear. The will was not a gift. It was a warning. Mr. Foster closed the folder again. This decision cannot be challenged, he said. Eleanor prepared everything legally. Victor stared at Lena. You took everything from me, he said. Lena stood slowly. No, she said softly. You gave it away. The room felt tense. Victor's eyes darkened. This isn't over, he said quietly. Lena felt a chill. Something in his tone felt dangerous. Mr. Foster noticed it too. Ms. Brooks, he said to Lena, Eleanor also left you a personal letter. He handed her an envelope. Lena's hands shook as she opened it. Inside were a few short lines written in Eleanor's familiar handwriting. I'm sorry I waited too long. You deserved the truth sooner. Be strong now. Not everyone will accept this. Lena swallowed hard. She looked up and saw Victor watching her, not with guilt, but with resentment, the kind that grows quietly, the kind that does not forgive. Clara stepped closer to Lena. If you need me, I'm here, she said softly. Lena nodded, but deep inside, she knew something terrible. This inheritance had not ended the story. It had just started a new war. Because when money meets guilt and truth meets shame, people don't always choose peace. They choose revenge. And Victor Brooks was not done yet. The house felt colder than usual that evening. Lena Brooks sat in the living room, staring at the fireplace. The flames flickered, casting strange shadows across the walls, almost as if they were whispering secrets. Victor Brooks, meanwhile, retreated to his room. He slammed the door so hard that the sound echoed through the hall. He could not believe what had happened. $1. One measly dollar. Everything Eleanor had built, everything he thought was his birthright, had been given to Lena. And worse, she had the letter, the proof of his own failures. Clara stayed close to Lena, though the older woman seemed lost in her thoughts. You look exhausted, Clara said softly. We need to stay careful. He's not going to let this go easily. Lena nodded, but her mind was racing. She had won the house, yes, she had her inheritance, but the cost of facing her own father, was something she couldn't yet measure. Victor did not sleep that night. He paced his room, muttering to himself. This isn't over, he whispered. I can't lose. I won't lose. She doesn't understand. His voice grew louder as anger consumed him. He thought of every moment he had avoided, every lie he had told, every day he had stayed silent, and now the truth had turned against him. By the next morning, Victor had already started planning. He knew Lena would not trust him. She had every reason to fear him. And fear, he realized, could be used. At breakfast, Victor smiled politely, almost like nothing had happened. He poured himself a cup of coffee and nodded to Lena. Good morning, he said smoothly. But his eyes flickered with something darker. A plan, cold and calculated. Lena watched him, feeling the tension in her chest tighten. She could see the polite mask he wore, but she also knew the real Victor Brooks was still inside, and he was dangerous. The first few days after the will were quiet, but deceptive. Victor acted as if he had accepted the decision. He helped with small chores around the house. He suggested repairs, even offered to fix things Lena hadn't asked for. Lena felt uneasy. Why now? Why the sudden care? It was Clara who noticed the first sign of betrayal. She had been cleaning the study when she found Victor rifling through papers in the safe. Papers that had nothing to do with daily bills or home repairs. "Victor!" she shouted. He froze, caught red-handed. I was just organizing," he stammered. Clara's eyes narrowed. "You're lying," she said. "Stay away from those documents. They're hers." Victor's lips pressed into a thin line. "She doesn't know the half of it," he muttered under his breath. But he said nothing more. For now. That evening, Lena received a phone call from a stranger. The voice on the other end was low and urgent. "Are you Lena Brooks?" "Yes," Lena replied cautiously. "I work for a private investigator. Your father has been manipulating things. He has been trying to gain control over the estate illegally. You need to be careful." Lena's hands shook as she hung up. She looked at Clara. "It's worse than I thought," she said. Clara nodded grimly. "He's dangerous, and he's not done. We need proof, Lena. Proof before he tries anything." Victor, meanwhile, watched them from the hall, pretending not to be listening. But he was listening. Every word, every move, and the fire in his chest grew hotter. The next day, Victor invited Lena to the old family cabin, far from the house, claiming he wanted to talk and reconcile. Lena felt a cold warning inside her chest. "This isn't safe," she whispered to Clara. Clara agreed. "We go together, and we take someone you trust. No surprises." But Victor was cunning. He made it sound innocent. He promised to discuss family memories, the past, and even offered to return a small collection of letters that Lena had never seen. Lena hesitated. The thought of finally understanding part of her past was tempting, but Clara's eyes were firm. "Don't go alone," she said. "Never alone." Victor had not expected this caution. He had assumed fear would weaken Lena, but caution made her stronger. It infuriated him. That night, Victor stayed awake plotting. Every detail had to be perfect. If Lena refused to go, he would find another way. He could wait. He had patience, and patience, he knew, was a weapon. Meanwhile, Lena spent the evening reading Eleanor's letters again. Each line gave her courage. Each word reminded her why she had to be careful. Eleanor had left more than money. She had left warnings. Not everyone will accept the truth. Trust is precious. Be strong. Always protect yourself. Lena read the words over and over. They were simple lines, but they carried power. They reminded her that fear could not control her, and that courage, even in the face of family betrayal, was her strongest weapon. The next morning, Lena prepared. She packed a small bag, took the letters, and made sure Clara was ready. They would go to the cabin, but this time, Lena was not a frightened daughter. She was alert, she was aware, and she was ready. Victor waited at the cabin, unaware of their plan. He assumed he had control. He assumed Lena would walk right into his trap. But he was wrong. By the time they arrived, Lena and Clara had already informed the investigator. Cameras were hidden. Every word would be recorded, every move observed. Victor smiled when he saw them. "You came," he said with a fake warmth. "I'm glad." Lena returned a steady look. She did not smile. She did not show fear. Victor's chest tightened, though he tried to hide it. He realized, just a little too late, that the game had changed. This time, Lena was not alone, and for Victor Brooks, the rules had changed forever. Victor Brooks stood at the edge of the cabin porch, the early morning mist curling around his shoes. He watched Lena and Clara approach, each step measured, each movement careful. He forced a smile. "Good morning," he said smoothly, his voice carrying the same calmness he had used so many times before. But inside, a storm brewed. He could feel it, something he hadn't anticipated. Lena wasn't afraid, and that was dangerous. Lena's heart pounded, but her face remained neutral. She carried Eleanor's letters in one hand and her bag in the other. She had read every word again and again the night before. Not everyone will accept the truth. Trust is precious. Be strong. She thought of the years she had endured, years of hidden threats, subtle manipulations, and the silent battles for control of her life. And now she was ready. Clara stayed just a step behind her, eyes scanning the woods, ears alert to every sound. The private investigator, whom Lena had called the day before, had set up discreet cameras inside the cabin. Everything Victor did would be recorded. Every word, every move. Victor gestured toward the cabin door. "Shall we go inside? It's a bit chilly out here." Lena nodded slowly. "Yes, let's," she said, but her voice held an edge, a warning he couldn't quite place. Once inside, Victor led them to the living room, arranging the chairs in a semicircle, trying to keep the atmosphere casual. He poured coffee for himself and offered cups to Lena and Clara. Lena accepted, but only out of politeness. Victor sipped his coffee, eyes darting subtly toward Lena. He tried to read her expression, but it remained calm, controlled. "I thought we could talk about the past," he said. "Family memories, things that perhaps you never understood." Lena sat quietly, hands folded around the cup, her eyes fixed on him. "I understand more than you think," she said quietly. Victor smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Really?" he said. "And what is it that you understand, Lena?" "That some people wear masks. Some people pretend to love, to care, when all they want is control. Some people, even their own family members, can be dangerous." The words hit Victor harder than any slap. He straightened in his chair, trying to mask his irritation. "That's strong language," he said, trying to sound amused, "and false. I've always wanted what's best for you. I've always been your father." Lena's eyes narrowed. "No, you wanted the house, you wanted the money, you wanted power, not me. And now, finally, everyone knows it." Victor's face hardened. He realized she wasn't bluffing. There was no fear in her tone, only truth. And the cameras, the private investigator, they were waiting. "You think you've won," he said, voice low, dangerous. "But this isn't over, not by a long shot." Lena placed Eleanor's letters on the table, spreading them out carefully. "I don't need to fight you," she said. "I have proof. Your threats, your lies, everything you tried to hide, it's all recorded. And it's not just me who knows. The law knows. And now, so will everyone else." Victor's jaw clenched. He reached for the letters, but Clara's hand rested lightly on his arm. "Step back," she said, calmly but firmly. "Do not touch them." Victor hesitated, realizing that his old tactics, fear, intimidation, and charm, no longer worked. Lena's calmness unnerved him, Clara's presence limited him, and the cameras ensured that any wrong move would be visible. "Lena," he said, lowering his voice, "I can fix this. We can work this out. You don't need to destroy me." "Destroy you?" Lena echoed, leaning forward slightly. "You destroyed trust. You destroyed family. You tried to destroy me. And no, I won't let you. Not anymore." Victor's eyes flickered with anger. His fingers tightened around his coffee cup until it nearly cracked. He realized then that all the careful planning, all the waiting, all the schemes had failed. She had anticipated every step. She had outsmarted him. For a moment, the room was silent, except for the soft ticking of the cabin clock. Then, in a low, almost desperate voice, Victor whispered, "You'll regret this. You can't trust anyone forever. People like you, they end up alone." Lena's gaze was unwavering. "Better to be alone than to live under someone's poison," she said softly, her eyes glinting with quiet determination. Victor recoiled as if struck. The words hit him harder than any law or evidence ever could. They were true, and in that truth he saw the end of his control. The private investigator stepped forward, pulling out the camera footage and files Victor didn't even know existed. Everything he's done is documented. Every attempt to manipulate, every threat, every illegal move, it's all here. The police have already been informed. Victor's face went pale. He realized he had underestimated Lena. Every move, every plan, every manipulation had been anticipated, and now the walls of his carefully constructed control were collapsing around him. You set me up!" he shouted, finally losing his composure. "This isn't fair." "It's called justice," Lena replied, "and it's long overdue." Victor looked around, finally seeing the calm, unwavering faces of Lena, Clara, and the investigator. He understood that this battle was lost, not because of force, not because of anger, but because truth, patience, and courage had outlasted his schemes. For the first time, Victor Brooks felt powerless. And in that powerless moment, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in years: relief, freedom. Claire reached over and squeezed Lena's hand. "It's over," she whispered. "You're safe now." Lena nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "It's over," she repeated, softly but firmly. The cabin felt lighter that afternoon. The tension, the fear, the betrayal, it had all been exposed. Victor sat quietly, defeated, his face a mask of regret and anger. He had gambled everything on control and manipulation, and had lost. And Lena? She had survived. She had faced the storm, confronted betrayal, and finally claimed her life back.